This is the Aftermarket Radio Network. Hey, Carm Capriato here, and a reminder to visit AftermarketRadioNetwork.com and view our family of podcasts, including Matt Fonslow and Chris Cotton. And hey, be on the lookout for more podcasts that are going to join the network real soon. Are you dreaming big enough for yourself and your business? Now, imagine what next year could look like if you take action today. Don't let past failures cloud your vision and or your passion. My guest, Bryan Gossel, shares his humble beginnings going through bankruptcy with his first business to his successful 3-store operation today. Listen closely to his journey and his story. Hey, thanks to our partner, Napa, for providing you this episode. You know, the Napa Expo will be held July 18th through the 21st at the Venetian Convention and Expo Center in Las Vegas. Stay on the forefront of the latest technologies and industry trends. Registration opens April 2022. Now, if you're not enrolled and interested in attending, contact your servicing Napa store for more information. Hey, everybody, always honored to have Bryan Gossel on the show. Hey, man, how you doing?
Doing awesome, sir. How are you?
Great. BG Automotive, Fort Collins, Colorado. You're up to 4 places now?
Yeah, we got 4 stores now and just cruising along, having fun.
So before we turn on the microphone, he says, we're about ready to have some more fun because the adjacent space in my original location is available. So we're tearing the wall down. We made a deal with the landlord, or did you own it? Do you own it?
It's a gray area.
Okay, good.
We own part of it. It's a lease to buy. There's some weird stuff going on, but it's always, yep.
Even better. But, you know, he's adding 3,600 square on top of his 4 stores. And those are exciting things. And so we're here to talk about, you did a presentation at Super Conference 2021, and I was busy doing a lot of great interviews while I was there. And I don't know if I sat in there for 10 minutes, but I was really motivated by what you were telling your peers there. And you were saying, hey, are you guys dreaming big enough? You were telling me that, you know, you weren't always super successful. You had this rags to riches story.
I've always been motivated and worked hard and done well at whatever I did, but there's a lot of things like you don't know what you don't know. I had worked for my old boss, became best friend, and then we became partners as a motorcycle parts and accessory business. You know, when you don't know what you don't know, and I guess he didn't know what he didn't know, and we went bankrupt. And I had said I never wanted to grow again to like we were. I mean, it was a big shop, but it wasn't successful. It wasn't profitable. Like his idea of balancing the checkbook was like how much money's in the checking account, you know? And I was asked like, what are we doing here? And I mean, I'm not that business smart, but I'm like, that doesn't make sense. I think it was Finn Waterhouse or R.L. O'Connor, like a 2-day seminar that Napa put on like 20, 30 years ago. And I'm like, holy cow, this was awesome. No, we don't need that.
Inside of the whole concept of EOS and traction, you were the visionary, and he couldn't see beyond his nose.
And I was. He would tell people that, man, everything that happened at his shop was because of me. And I appreciate that. And I mean, there's a lot to be learned as I've continued to go and grow, because like right now I have Phill, who's my right-hand man, who is essentially, he and I have been blessed enough to be 2 peas in a pod. But there was a lot of learning going on as we were going and growing and thriving. Phil's in the driver's seat. He runs BG Automotive, lock, stock, and barrel, day-to-day operations, and I am the visionary. And we talk, and I'm always throwing stuff at him, and he takes my rifle away, or takes my shotgun away, because I always have so many ideas, and gives me a rifle. Says, hold on, slow down a little bit here.
I have got to find the episode, and I'm trying to remember what it was. I think we recorded it back in Colorado, the Phill and Phill show. Do you remember?
Yep.
It was, here it is, Understanding Your Role. I just found it on the website. It's episode 527 with Phil Christensen and Phil Carpenter. It was Bryan something. You guys, of course, are the owners. And so I always said, I have my Phill. I mean, to me, the word, the Phill was like the code name for the COO, right?
I mean, Bryan and I love that guy. Bryan Sump is an amazing operator, and Phil Carpenter is like, we've been so blessed to hang out with each other and just build such a true friendship and allies in the industry. And man, you got to have a Bryan and Phill. Just watch out, because here we come.
My God, Bryan, I'm hearing that. everywhere. And in fact, even here in Western New York, there's an independent shop owners group, and I'm invited and I go. And I hang out with my local peers, people that I've known my whole life here in business. There were 25 guys at a 6:15 in the morning breakfast. Shop owners, if a couple of vendors were there, they invite them to come by, and occasionally they may buy breakfast. As my friend Tom Ciartino, who leads it, he says that most of the meetings are organic. We come in with a topic we want to talk about, but it just goes, and people are learning from each other and they're challenging each other. I think that's the single biggest thing that's going on in our industry to make each other better is the networking piece. Yes, coaching, yes, 20 groups, but it's almost like that's good, but I want a little bit more. And guys are now expanding their worlds, 20 groups, networking groups, local, regional, national conferences. Our industry is on fire learning stuff.
It is so awesome. And we've been so blessed. We've been ATI for 12 to 15 years, I think. I'm in ATI's CEO group, and we're in there. Phill and I and Cindy are in the Peak Performers group. We've got some of our salesmen are in like a second command group there. And then also the Transformers, man. I love the Transformers, and such a brotherhood that's where I truly met Brian Somp. Doug Grills. We're some of the original guys in that first ever meeting. And the three of us built a freaking awesome just relationship of brotherhood.
Drop some great names. They've all been on the podcast. Just look up Brian Somp, look up Doug Grills.
Dwayne Myers, is in there. Yep.
Of course, Greg Bunch and that whole team. And so here it is, Brian, he's in Transformers as an ATI, and he finds the time to find the energy that he gets and the ideas that he gets from both groups. And some people would say, how you do it?
I'm working on figuring out time management because, we've got my wife and I've actually really, 23 years of marriage. That's been my number one focus lately. Because that's always the easiest thing that you can put to the side or run over, or just take for granted. And I've wanted to, and I have been working really hard at making that better. And it takes two. So Cindy and I we're doing great right now. And marriage can be your toughest job, but your most rewarding also. So balancing that, and then also being a highly competitive race car driver, racing all the sprint cars and USAC Silver Crown stuff. Like I put a race schedule together to run like 60 nights again this year. So on top of that, and open some more stores, and there's a lot going on.
You've created your world and your life to be different almost every day. And you're the kind of individual as a visionary. And I'm saying this stuff to, please remember, thank you for being a loyal listener. And you've heard some of these stories over and over again. But there are people that join our network new all the time, and we need to get inside their heads so that as we lift all boats, we can all get up there. And there may be listeners out here that have never heard Brian on my show before. Just 3 minutes ago, I wrote the words "time suck" down. Okay, Brian, because I suffer with that too. You got a tip or a hack?
We are a yes shop. No is not in our vocabulary, and I am having to learn how to say no. Saying yes, I truly believe has gotten us to where we're at. Phill was asked to speak at the ATI Super Conference this year coming up in March. He called me up. He's like, dude, I don't know what to do. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, that's freaking awesome. You're getting to speak there, and he's like, yeah, but it's my daughter's spring break. I told him, the old me would have said, I'm going to speak. Because it's good for your ego. It makes you feel good. You're improving the industry. I'm like, oh, man, but we're focused on family and building that family culture. And how can we grow family culture if we don't take care of our own families? And he told them he could not go. And he's got his motorhome ready, and they're going to go, they road trip on spring break. And I was so proud. I actually talked at the ASA Summit, and I started crying because of it. It's just how, growing people and making people better is just huge. And I was asked to speak at Ratchet and Wrench again this coming year. I had to tell him no because there was a big race in Meridian, Idaho, and it's like a 20,000 win race, and I finished second last year. It's like, oh man, I had to say no, and it was hard because I love going to Ratchet and Wrench, and I've met so many amazing people there, and that they actually want to listen to me is kind of cool, But a lot going on to continue to improve yourself and people around you.
So much to learn in the last 3 or 4 minutes of discussion that both you, Brian, and your number two, Phill, both said no to something When I'm asked to do a keynote or speak or take my studio somewhere, and if it just doesn't work in the cards, I haven't had to say no yet, but I've been around the horn a lot, and I've had other opportunities back in corporate America where I just couldn't do it. But you know what, Bryan? You get over it. And if you made the decision for all the right reasons, they'll always be the right decision.
Mike Bennett is my ATI coach, and that man is a stud among coaches, so I got my 4 pillars: faith, family, work, and racing. So my 4 pillars, and sometimes those, number 1 is definitely faith, but we all fail every day. So you got to just balance those pillars and stand up. So I had to make a decision, and there's times where it's like, if it's not helping or improving one of those pillars, is it really worth it? Knowing where you want to go and how you're going to get there is half the battle.
Hey, Carm here. Now, with a 3-store operation, how does Bryan's staff stay connected? Keep listening and find out. Hey, it's Carm here. Today, I have a special message for Napa Auto Care Centers who are looking to take the next step in growing their business and partnership. Now, if you're ready to strive and take it to the next level, Napa invites you to consider Gold Certification. Gold Certification is a premier tier of Napa Auto Care that recognizes repair shops with a higher level of participation in the Auto Care program. The program was built by Auto Care Centers for Auto Care Centers to provide a consistent consumer experience, maximize technology leverage, and reward Napa's most committed partners. When consumers visit a Gold Certified Auto Care Center, whether it's a small facility in a rural community or a multi-bay shop in a large metropolitan area, they can expect a first-class service repair experience. This includes a well-trained staff using today's technology and quality Napa parts in a comfortable, up-to-date facility. Customers at Gold Certified shops will also enjoy an extended parts and labor warranty, valuable saving opportunities, along with access to credit to pay for needed repairs, and a whole lot more. Here's what you need to qualify for the program. First, you need to be an active auto care partner for at least 12 months and have a steady business presence in your market for at least 2 years. Then, to become Gold Certified, it's necessary to meet specific requirements, chosen because they create the most consistent consumer experience and proven to generate the most significant results for auto care centers across the country. Some of these include using digital vehicle inspection, having at least one ASE Master Certified technician, a co-branded exterior, and offer consumer financing through Napa Easy Pay. You must also be an active member of a business development group. Once your shop achieves Gold Certification, you'll receive a number of benefits, including priority placement on Napa's shop locator pages, an allowance for marketing funds, 3636 peace of mind and local labor coverage, access to auto tech training, Napa Track's shop management system, Smart Sign digital menu board, and more. Talk with your servicing Napa store to find out everything you need to know about becoming a Gold Certified shop. It's amazing. We're in the first only 15 minutes of the show, and you've made all these name drops. Thank you for doing that, by the way. I will put the Phill interview in the show notes. And, of course, I interviewed Mike Bennett. It was episode 647, and then he came back on the Town Hall Academy, episode 249, and did coaching CEOs to their next level. He brought a couple of his CEO. You of course, knew him. It was Dan Garlock and Scott Brown in the group with you. Who would have stopped to think the importance of EOS, the importance of CEO, the importance of COOs in developing great number twos when you started, I don't know how many years ago, 14, 15 years ago, who would have thought that you would have had to adopt this level of leadership?
People call me, they say I'm like a leader of men, and that just makes me feel really humble, and it's just like, wow, I don't know, I'm just a dude, I'm just a guy, nothing special, just little things like that make you really think, and that puts a lot of responsibility and pressure on you to, like, if you are, and I am a leader of men, like, we got a team of 37 people that work at BG Automotive, and shame on me, like, we've had so much growth, and I used to be able to tell you, hey man, if I mess up 68 people, I'm going to mess up their lives, because I go count the team, that the person that works for us, their significant other, their kids, if they're supporting their mom or grandma, all that stuff. That's how you get the total number of people that count on you not to fail. And just little things. And I don't know that number right off the top of my head because we've had so much growth and just adding And that's a learning curve too, is how to be the man, but not be the man.
There is this maturing process that takes place. And, whatever day it started for you, I'm sure you have never stopped being a perpetual student and a learner. But did you have to learn to listen more?
Man, I still struggle with that. You can ask Cindy every day. But I try super hard. And it doesn't help that I'm hard of hearing with some of the racing I've done my whole life. I always, I'm quick to jump to the answer, because it's like if somebody would start talking to me, I'm already 15 steps ahead of them. Like, hey, you're talking of a problem. I already know what we need to do to get there, and learning how to really listen. So we were just in Florida at our ATI Peak Performers 20 group meeting, and had some people come up to me and say, "What's wrong?" "What do you mean?" They're like, "You aren't talking." I'm like, "I'm working on listening and letting other people get the win and put their advice or their input in it." And instead of, I love talking and helping and just giving answers and elevating people. Paul Campanella actually called me the next day, and he's got 2 stores now, and actually they're not open yet, but I know he closed on the property for 2 more stores. So he's going to be at 4 stores. And he's like, "Man, you really made me think with you sitting there," because Paul likes talking. He's a visionary leader. Just hearing that, I was like, man, I did something right, and I helped somebody else get better, trying to fix myself. And sometimes the best way to learn is to teach.
The thrill of a good leader would be to watch an individual do what you did many years ago and have their own aha moment. And there's something inside of you, Bryan, I believe, that you have to overcome in order to watch someone else learn.
To be brutally honest, learning that and growing has been depressing, because I am a doer and a fixer and a worker, and I'm literally sitting in my office, which is at my house. I'm in my home office, and this is where I spend most of my time working away and not being around people and learning how to deal with that. I've been in my home office for 3 years, 2 years now. I don't remember, but it's been a full on, this is where I am pretty much every day working and, looking at, QuickBooks and P&L and balance sheets and looking for new opportunities and doing Zoom meetings or whatever. So,
but that's where Phill wants you, right?
Oh yeah. I'm not allowed to go do certain things. And if I go, they call it swoop and poop. I'm not allowed to do that anymore. I used to go in and stir the pot up and see even with this taking over, I'm going to have Greg Bunch beat me up and for saying this, but Phill and I were doing $15 an hour work today. And yesterday we were demoing walls and I had to change clothes because I had my dirty stuff on. I'd sold a lift to the guy we were taking over these new spots from, and it was an older lift that it wouldn't pass OSHA inspection. And I was like, "Got it out here." I'm like, "You need to get this out of here." Literally, Phill and I had that down, and it was operational to on the ground and out the door in 20 to 25 minutes.
You're a wrecking crew.
I made it, yeah. We're doing a Kukui webinar on Thursday with Dwayne Myers. So Phill and Dwayne and I, and Dwayne's like, "Man, I can't wait to see. Well, I want to see the forklift drive through walls again, because we have fun." And that $15 an hour work sometimes, and Cindy, yesterday, I'm like, "Man, I'm torn. Do I go do this, or what do I do?" And she's like, "If you want to do it, go do it." And I'm like, "Thank you. Gosh, that made my day."
There are things that I shouldn't do in my media company, but I do, and it's kind of, if you will, humbling. It's stuff, some of the fun stuff, drive the forklift through the wall and wreck this crew, because if Greg says it's $15 an hour work, you actually did it to the point where it was like hiring an expert at 30. You did it so well, so efficiently.
And that's where Phill and I definitely, nobody can do it as fast as we can. Just watch out. And Phill, he takes it to the next level. I'm like, "Whoa, slow down. We're going to make some people not happier. Hold on, pump the brakes."
See, Cindy realized, Bryan, that you needed a release.
Yeah, but still, it's knowing your roles and staying in your lane and the chain of accountability and figuring all that stuff out. BG started in 2007. So I think what's 15 years. And I had to holy cow, it's been 15 years, and Phil's been there for 10 of them. And there was a time where he and I probably didn't talk to each other for a month, but we still worked side by side, but we didn't talk to each other. So imagine that. We were I was ready to fire him and he was ready to quit, until we kind of had a coming to Jesus meeting with each other, and we were both being silly.
Well, you were both being you, and you didn't understand him, and he didn't understand you, and getting the roles defined and who does what. And I'm this kind of person, so I like doing this, and I speak like this, and I act like that, and and so all this learning happens. But it goes back to the marriage thing. If you each work hard to understand the next person a little bit more than 50%, then there's a way to meet in the middle and have it work.
Absolutely. You got to pick your battles, but it's fun, and 99% of the time it's amazing, but that you still got to know when to push or not push. And sometimes, we both will say something that frustrates each other. And we both have learned and figuring that balancing act out, and we will push each other, have fun while we're doing it. It's exciting. When I talked about like dreaming big and are your goals big enough? And I will never forget sitting in ATI's Shop 101 class, and it took me 3 years to actually go to that.
Were you stubborn?
I was probably a little stubborn, and I thought I was doing well, and we were doing good.
You were happy with you.
Yeah, and some of it, honestly, was just me. I was working by myself, but then I realized, man, I can't work by myself for forever. I got to figure something out. Like Cindy and I were sitting there talking because they ask, like, how much money do you want to make? So they start, in the workbook, you put in how much money you want to make, and then they work it backwards to show you how much money you need to bring in as income from the shop for that net that you want to take home. And I was like, man, if I could only make $100,000 a year, life would be set. That is a great income for sure. But shoot for the stars sometime and be like, I want to make $1 million a year, and what's that going to take? And then just do the math backwards. And I told Greg Bunch, I'm like, man, I want to do $1 billion in automotive repair work. He was just quiet. He's just like, whoa, so like that's the visionary shooting for the stars and just like totally going for it. And is that a realistic goal? I don't know. We might still do it.
It's up and out there far enough that the ladder is not big enough, but guess what? A rung at a time.
A rung at a time. And it's like right now, everything we're doing, we are not wanting to sell. I'm 40, I think I'm 45 years old now. I don't want to sell. Somebody have to come pay me enough money to where I could retire my whole staff. We're having too much fun and growing and improving the industry and our team and helping them fulfill their goals. But everything we're doing is to set the business up for sale, because when you're doing that, it's going to be running at its most optimal and best performing and looking the best. And why not just do it? And not that we are selling, we are not. But when you're setting up for sale, it's going to run the best it's ever going to run. It's
amazing, Bryan, for you to even say that. And I've heard a little bit on the shows lately, I'm not for sale, but if.
I've had 2 people come get serious, and I'm like,
okay, see, there you go. And 3 or 4 years ago, we wouldn't be talking about this. But there's a lot of private equity money out there. There are people like you that want $1 billion empire of all these bays that have found money behind them, or they've got the core, they may have 50, 60 bays under them, and they didn't, I can double that in a year and have, 120. Now you're on track for $1 billion, whatever the number is. But Bryan, we didn't have top operators like we have today. Guys like you with multi-shop ownership, we did, but it was more of the institutional, the big box bay owners, location owners, and it's so exciting to see. Did you ever think just 4 or 5 years ago? I knew you had some probably BHAG, big ass hairy goals. Are you happy with the position you are today, looking back?
Absolutely. I have been blessed beyond all means. It is. I still pinch myself, and just we live outside of town. We get to look at the mountains, and like Cindy and I, I'm just like, gosh, we are so blessed. Like God has done such amazing things, and it's just so cool.
If you had anything to do over again, because there's a lot of guys out there that are sitting and saying, I really feel I'm primed and I'm ready for my second store. What would be your best advice?
Well, I met Brian Sump and then got to know Doug Grills very well. It was a God story on how I ended up in the very first Transformers meeting. Like the level of stuff in our Transformers group is next level stuff. I'd put everybody in there up against the best operators in the country. I had somebody in there give Cindy and I crap. Like, man, you've only got one store. When are you guys going to go more? And I was like, man, I don't know the answer to that right now. But our original one store, I mean, it was a $3.5 million store. So one store is doing more than their three was. So it's like, who's giving who crap here, you know, and checking the ego there. But it definitely, if I wasn't working and continuing to learn and improve and growing the team around us, because we went from one store to 3 stores a week apart of each other. Our second store, we opened the last week of February, and the third store, we opened the first week of March. A lot of stuff going on, and it was stressful and busy, and it was 7 days a week for months. You know, I mean, our team stepped up, but it worked out. And if we didn't have stuff we'd been working on the 2 years being in Transformers before we opened another store, it would not have gone as well. You know, just asking questions and how you do this and why this and that, you know, I mean, asking a lot of questions and getting information from somebody that's already done it.
So you ended up being curious. You started to say, I don't know what's around the next corner. You literally put your ego on the shelf and says, I better listen to these guys that are way ahead of me, instead of me trying to think, oh, this can't be too hard.
But having the right people and building the right team and all the stuff, like, so when Phill joined me, he came from a big corporate tire company, and he hated policies and procedures. And, you know, I mean, we're just going to take care of each other and move forward, you know. But now we both are like, oh, boy, we're back to where we have to have policies, procedures, structures. We just can't fly by the seat of our pants, and learning how to do true budgets and forecasting and diving into the P&L. And I have not been very good at that. And like right now, I got my buddy Dan Garlock is, you know, helping me dive into understand a little bit more. And, you know, I gave him my P&L, and he emailed me back a bunch of questions. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why is it? Why is that over here? You know, I mean, just letting people that are smarter than you help you, you know, and be open for advice. Scott Milan, he's got Scott's Auto Service Centers. He's got 5 stores now. He's got 4 in Colorado, and he opened 1 out of state in Arizona. He and I have known each other for forever. I feel we both have helped each other out in so many different ways. Like, I will never forget, we were at the gym working out, and we just would end up talking quite a bit. And I'm like, man, how do you get away from your store? You know, because he had a salvage yard at that time. I mean, he had a nice, beautiful house and awesome race car operation as well. And I'm like, how do you get away? And he's like, man, you got to let them fail. And like that conversation, that was a pivotal point for me, because failure wasn't an option. And so I took that one step forward. We tell our team, fail faster, you know, because when you fail, you're learning. And the cost of tuition, we've had to stroke some $10,000 checks for cost of tuition for repairing something. When you're willing to be humble and listen to somebody else who's been there, done that, it saves your learning curve immensely.
Failure is not an option. You see the poster behind me. That only applies to people's lives. And that was obviously was Apollo 13. But you're right. I'll never forget reading a Fail Forward book from John Maxwell. And you know, that really helped me understand, get out of your people's way. Let them taste failure for the first time. Because if they don't get a taste of what it's like, they're going to make the mistake again. Let's go back to multi-store. I'm notching my belt because my friends and my buddies are doing it, and I have an opportunity. Guy picked up the phone. I want to get out. Come on over. Just bring your checkbook. You'll be able to afford it, and not do the math, not do the study, not do the due diligence, and grow for the sake of growing. Or is there a higher order like wealth building?
That one hits close home. I know some people that have done that. They went and had one store, and they're like, an opportunity fell in their lap, and they're like, oh man, I'm going to do this. And they're struggling, you know, because they didn't dive into the resources and the help. You know, you don't even have to stick in automotive. Check out a franchise, you know, go to McDonald's and learn how they do it. Chick-fil-A, look at how they're doing stuff, and just learn from somebody who's already done it. And, you know, R&D, rip off and duplicate that deal and make it way easier on yourself, you know, because like there's so many different options, and this shop down the street, he wants me to buy everything. And how do you know what you're willing to pay for it is one thing, because realtors are going to tell you one thing, the bank's going to tell you one thing, you know, the SBA, like everybody's going to tell you something, but what is the true nuts and bolts of how to figure out what it's worth? And most shops are run by the owner. And when that owner leaves, the shop becomes a whole lot less valuable, because now you have to put somebody in there to run it. And when you put $75,000 to $100,000 a year manager in a store, and the owner wasn't taking that much home. The numbers don't look so well. And then when you educate them on that, like it took 2 years to get the third store deal done. Like they were both older gentlemen. One was 68 and the other was 72. And being stubborn, and they didn't know what they didn't know. And their realtor was like, "Oh man, your business is worth $1 million. You were only doing $400,000 a year in revenue. How is it worth $1 million?" Because he was thinking you take revenue times a multiplier.
A big mistake. Oh God. Oh my God.
So just but like he was listening to his realtor. Everybody's got a way of doing it, but the true nuts and bolts of understanding, hey, this shop is not profitable. It hasn't made a profit. And then they'll give you the argument, "Oh man, well, I'm running all this cash through the business." That's not very smart, especially if you're wanting to sell. I mean, yeah, you're hiding some money from Uncle Sam, but in the long run, it's hurting you, because when you're going to sell, you're not going to get what you feel you deserve. Or just go buy an empty building and figure out like what it's going to cost. And like we've got it dialed in, the 4th store we opened up, it was an empty building. We have, a list of all of our vendors and check off. Like we've learned to track and keep all the information of people who did certain jobs for us, and those equipment. Like we have an equipment list of what we need to do to staff and stock up an empty building. And I almost prefer to go that way right now, because it's easier, because you can go in and demo everything and start off clean. And yeah, it may cost a little more up front, but in the long run, it's going to be way better. And diving in and getting the systems and processes in place. Like we opened our 4th store last March, and from March till the end of the year, they hit $1 million in the 9 months.
You bring up the great point is that you really want to buy a customer list. You want to buy people. It doesn't mean that people are right, and it doesn't mean the customers are right. And it would be kind of neat, like you'd say, listen, we've got a marketing machine going. We know who our avatar, our customer is. We want to target them. We don't want to have to wait for some of these customers to go away and find new ones. It's almost like a brownfield.
And it's all about people. Without our team and their support we get and give to each other, we spend close to $200,000 a year in education. And you tell people, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "No, seriously. With all the different, transformers and ATI, and then the COO groups and the key leader groups and the service advisor groups. And now we have transformers as a shop foreman group. All 4 of our shop foremen are in the shop foreman group. So putting into people and educating them and giving them the power, man, they come back so fired up. Like there's times where Phill and I are like, "Dude, we've been telling this person till we were blue in the face about this." And they go to class or a meeting. They come back like, "Oh man, this is amazing. I wish you would have told me about that."
That's the expert syndrome. Way back when I was in business, I had a buddy in the next town over, and I said, "Could you listen? I'm going to give you these talking points. I want you to drive in, bring a briefcase, set it on the counter, open it up, take out these talking points, and I want you to wear a suit and tie. I want you to be really professional looking." And I said, "I want you to say the thing I've been telling my people for the last 5 months. You're an outsider." I had to find a new way to get my message across. And then joining a peer team and saying, "Oh my God, he's just like me," or he's had the same things. I've struggled with this, and to find out that the rest of the world is very much the same as you. We did a show, a Town Hall Academy, called "I Want $1 Million for My Business." You had just mentioned it. Hunt Demarest, Brian Bates, and Joe Hansen on. And it was a wonderful discussion to try to temper, I do $400,000 in sales and I want $1 million. And then it takes them 5 years to come to terms that they're not going to get that. And now the business is history. They could have gotten something for it had they not been belligerent, stubborn, short-sighted, and they got some really bad advice. I'm going to go back to one thing. I mentioned wealth building. There's no doubt, listen, you want to hire great people, you want to build this family, culture, and team, but Bryan, you're building wealth.
Yeah, we are, and I actually brought that up at my last 20 group meeting, and at the CEO meeting. I am responsible for a lot of stuff and understanding what and how and to do with those certain things. It's like, man, I did not grow up wealthy. I don't never remember my parents owning a house. We lived in an apartment with my mom. My parents were divorced. My dad rented a condo thing or something. Not knowing any of that, like having to learn it and understand it, you need to put yourself around people who kind of understand it a little more. So now with what I'm learning, like even our financial advisor was at Webster yesterday, And I know he was going to go, like, he's hitting all the stores again, and helping our team understand, like, do you know you have a 401k? Do you know what this is? Do you know how this works? Do you know he's giving you money to give you money? You know, I mean, you got to have a little skin in the game. But after a couple shops doing Dave Ramsey stuff, diving in and doing that, it's our responsibility to try and help our team not live paycheck to paycheck. That's the way the world is the world educates people to live paycheck to paycheck.
You have just so perfectly been able to allow me to bring all these shows up. It's amazing. Thank you. We just released a Town Hall Academy, Financial Help for Your Team, and it was all about Dave Ramsey, paycheck to paycheck, and getting debt free and helping your people. I mean, I could sense that you want your people to walk away with their paycheck and feel it's wealth for them.
Yeah. And I mean, that's part of our mission, vision, purpose. You know, our mission statement, it is our duty to continue to improve our industry and the public perception. Our vision is to be to 5 by 2025. Did we not shoot the goal big enough? But at the time, we only had one store. We thought 5 was going to be a lot. Here we're 2022 and at 4. So we haven't reevaluated our vision. And then our purpose is to continue to fulfill our team's dreams and goals and give them the opportunity to do that.
How hard has it been for you and Phill to get the right people in the right seats?
It's been a learning curve. Like, Phil's done an amazing job of getting the store leads put in the right place. So the BG way and the BG culture is highly important. And Cindy doesn't want to grow anymore because she doesn't want to lose the BG way in the culture and the family feel. So I'm like, oh, you saying I can't do that? Watch out. We're going to do this. So I've got to.
Does she really think that it would become loose?
We've had hiccups. We've had failures, and Phill had to go in and run a store a couple months because we had a culture suck in there.
Those are calluses, growing pain calluses, and you know what? The biggest companies in the world have those hiccups. And again, this is my opinion. Not to grow because of that, but that the learning curve of trying to keep an eye on that quicker, better, faster than you did would have probably not prevented it. But then it goes back to open and transparent communications and, assessments and, literally, Bryan, Phill going in and talking to his people and asking, how are we doing? How am I doing? How are you doing? That ferrets out an awful lot of information. Do that litmus test on your team and on your people, on your leaders.
There's times I feel bad. I don't go to one of the stores. There's with all the different 20 groups and stuff. I might not go there for a month or two, just depending in person. I still have communication via, text or email or whatever, and understanding that and allowing Phill to go in. But if I come in, I still feel I have a very good sense of what's going on, just walking through and talking to people. Oh man, something ain't good there. What's going on? And Phil's like, yeah, there's something over here. Somebody had an issue, whatever it was, a death in the family, or we are mechanics and we're in the automotive industry. And our number one goal is to fix people. Cars is the easy part. Whether it's an internal or external guest, the internal ones are the most important, and the external, which is our guests that come into the shop. We fix them and educate them. And sometimes we get to be their counselors and, just real life on, ooh, that doesn't make sense to fix this car. Let's not, or why would you want to get rid of this? Do you realize that you're going to have to put new plates on here? And what the true expense is. So just educating and improving people, we get to fix people. I
love that. To me, that's a big takeaway for anyone here, is that we fix people. Let's finish this thing off. Team family meetings, is that something that helps build a BG culture?
We've always had, camping trips, and we always do a lot of fun stuff together as a family company. And Phill and I, we did not like the one-on-ones. Just personally, we're like, man, this is a waste of time, And he and I could talk and dominate. But not everybody works that way, and learning to speak other people's language. So we had taken an employee engagement survey 2-3 years ago, probably. It was way above standards, except for communication from my boss or my leader. There was no one-on-ones. There's no real communication. And And I told Phill that, and I'm like, dude, we need to work on this. He's like, dude, I have one-on-ones all the time. What are you talking about? So an epiphany with Phill is like, I'm like, that's like situational training. That's not a true one-on-one. A true one-on-one is like what you and I are doing right now, where we have an agenda and we're talking about a certain topic and numbers or goals or whatever is going on. So yes, like today, Phil's has his one-on-ones with all 4 store leads. But every Wednesday, we have all 4 stores get together and we talk about our fundamental of the week. And we have 25 fundamentals, and we keep focusing on them and rotate every other week. And somebody gets to read it and talk about it and what it means to them. And then we're done with that big meeting, and each store will break off and have their store meeting. And then Thursday is our salesman meeting, where all the salesmen get together. Then I'm not sure what day the technician one is, but all of our shop foremen get together and have all 4 stores talk once a week. And now we're doing a monthly in-person with all of our leadership team, which is our store leads and shop foremans, where we are meeting once a month. And that was we did that last Thursday for the first time, because we actually have a room at our new store where we have like a little conference room and we have the space to do it. So that was an in-person meeting. And then we have the BG annual once a year, where we'll go rent a house up in Estes Park, which is like half hour away. And that's where we really started getting traction, was like, I think we've had 4 or 5 of those leadership meetings, and we literally we go up there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And the first one, like, I can still pull up pictures on my phone, and Phill can, but I went and bought the big, huge Post-it notes. Literally this house, wall to wall, floor to ceiling. We wrote down everybody's job descriptions and their roles and responsibilities. We wrote our mission, vision, purpose. We wrote all that stuff, and it was the true team. And everybody that was in that meeting is still 100% in our company and growing and thriving. And that's just cool to watch people want more and to get it, Today, we were doing a prequel to our Kukui meeting coming up on Thursday. And I'm like, man, Phill, they're talking about culture and team and growing and stuff. And I'm like, I used to be able to recite how many marriages, children, and houses have been bought because of BG Automotive. There have been so many. So Phil's going to recount again real quick so we can have that number.
And that's a number that the team should know. I mean, because that's the family that your extended family that you have, as you say, responsibility for.
We've had people say, man, I'm never going to be able to buy a house. George, our main shop foreman, the company trainer, like he was like, I'm never going to be able to afford to buy a house. And I was like, why not, George? And he started telling me why, and we worked through some personal issues, and he had finally bought his dream Toyota pickup truck. And it was red, like it was his dream truck. And I'm like, you want a house or you want that truck? Because you can buy another truck. And he actually sold his dream truck to get out of debt, to put more money away. And now he owns a house, and they're working on, they got the credit card, and he's finally engaged to his girlfriend, where they've been together. I've beat him up on that for a long time. So they're engaged and going to get married this year. So it's like just so many amazing stories of people they don't know what they don't know, and they don't know how to get there, because nobody's ever really, schools don't teach how to do a budget or track money or do any of that stuff. So most parents don't know how to do it. They live paycheck to paycheck.
Town Hall Academy 262, just anybody who's suffering in the industry with any kind of financial issue, or even an owner who says, listen, I really want to help my people. How do I start? Well, John Gustafson, Frank Skender, Russell Crosby, they came on and they shared how they have done it. This was really good, Bryan. There's the building blocks of so many incredible strategies and ideas here. And you've always come on and been so transparent and giving. So I thanks for bringing your expertise, your perspective, and your wisdom to the podcast, man.
Well, thanks, sir. It's very humbling and honoring to get to do this stuff. Just giving back and helping people just be better people.
So we started with a title or a topic that, are you dreaming big enough? Boy, I think we figured your story out. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Heck yeah.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier automotive aftermarket podcast. Until next time.